Hello and welcome to Rando Rob. Each week on Rando Rob, I'll be showing and discussing one item from my large collection of collections. New shows appear every Monday, and throughout the week, I'll be adding older episodes of Rando Rob that were previously only available to my Patreon subscribers. You can watch episodes of Rando Rob on YouTube at youtube.com/Rob O'Hara. Just look for the Rando Rob playlist. Audio versions of the show are available on my website at podcast.robohara.com or through iTunes. Just search for Rando Rob. Thanks for watching or listening, and I hope you enjoy this vintage episode of Rando Rob. So as you've seen the slideshow going on over there for Rando Rob, we have different things relating to Bruce Lee, the video game. Bruce Lee is a computer game that was on the Commodore 64. I first played it on the Apple II. It was on a lot of different machines. It was on the Atari. It's just a classic game that has been ported to a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's an early platform type game, and it's memorable, because you have Bruce Lee, and then Bruce Lee has two opponents. He has Yemo, the sumo wrestler, and also Ninja. And so these two opponents chase him around the entire time. And, again, it's a really early platform game. So people that had computers in the 80s, everybody that had computers in the 80s had played Bruce Lee at some point in time. It's a simple platform type game where the whole goal is to go from platform to platform and collect these lanterns and collect all of them. And that will unlock and allow you to advance further in the game. And so I definitely played this back in the 80s. I believe this came out in 84. Again, I had it first on the Apple II and then on the Commodore 64 later. So I definitely played it on multiple systems. So fast forward, let's see, 84, 94, 2004, 2014, not quite 35 years, but more than 30 years, I got my first 3D printer. And in fact, you can see it right over my shoulder. That's my 3D printer sitting there at the end of the desk. It's a Creality CR10S, which I love the printer. It is definitely not plug and play. It's definitely not something that you just buy off the shelf and then it's good to go. I mean, you had to assemble it. It took me 2 days, I think, before I got a good print. It's definitely a tinkerer's type toy. Now, my son bought a Ender, and we bought it for him for Christmas, a Ender, I think a 3 Pro, and it's much more user-friendly than mine. But mine is kind of a previous generation, and the generation before mine was people would tinker with it between every print, and mine's not like that. I could go over there and print something right now, and I haven't printed anything in probably a month, but I'm confident that I could go do that. So anyway, when I first got my 3D printer, for the majority of what I did was print things that other people had designed. So there's websites. There's a website called Thingiverse. It's the word Thingiverse. And you could go there, and there are tens of thousands, maybe millions of models, 3D models that other people have made and allow you to download for free. So you could download those 3D models and plug them into your printer and print them out. And there's here's just a dumb example. I may have shown this. I don't think I showed it on this, but I have this little skull, this guy over here. It's a bust of a guy, and my wife one day said, that guy really needs a hat. And so I went on Thingiverse and typed in hat and went through the hats, and I found this tiny little sombrero. And so I 3D printed a sombrero, and it sits on top of the guy's head. But I have printed more useful things too. There's not any, you know what? Here's one that you can see. I will pull this off right here. So I don't know if you noticed, but we've been in a pandemic for the past year. And everybody has at least one, but over time I've collected multiple masks to go over my face. And so right over my desk right here, I have this, which is a hook. And so this is a hook that's designed to go over a shelf. So it slides in just over a shelf, and then it has this bottom hook piece. And so my masks hang right there. And so when I'm getting ready to leave the house, I can go right there and just grab a mask right off the hook, and it works great. So now you're probably thinking, well, you're probably thinking one of a few things. Number one, I throw my masks on the floor or on my desk. You can do that. You don't have to have that. Number two, you might be thinking, well, couldn't I go to Amazon and just buy a little hook? You could, but that much filament that's in something like this, let me get this back off here. I'm going to estimate that this cost me less than $0.25 to print. Probably, yeah, maybe $0.25, maybe around that, you know. So it's super cheap. Now you have to figure in the price of the $600 printer. So depending on how you look at it, it's either a 25-cent hook or a $600.25 hook, one or the other. But you know, there's also a certain amount of satisfaction of just making or designing or tweaking the things that you want or need. I have a thing up here that holds like a glasses rack that holds reading glasses and sunglasses. You know, so as I need little things and or want little things, I either find them on Thingiverse, but then I started wanting to design my own things, and there's a website called Tinkercad, which is a 3D CAD program, and it's free. It's online. It runs in your browser, and you could go in and draw things with simple shapes, some complex shapes. Mason has made some a screw to go into a thing. He was missing a screw, and he got the right thread pattern and rendered that. But you know, I'm pretty limited to squares and boxes and circles and pretty simple type shapes. But I came up with this idea one time. I was like, you know, sprites from Commodore games are usually done on this little grid, and I don't think it would be that tough to translate those sprites into Tinkercad and print out an actual sprite. And so if you're not familiar with the game, then this won't mean as much to you. But if you are, now these are very rough because I had a problem with my printer at the time, and so I've always meant to go back and print a newer version of these in a little bit different scale. But this is Bruce Lee, and so you can see, you know, if you've played the game, this is the Bruce Lee, and I added this little base so that he can stand up. I don't know if I can balance that on my hand. Yeah, nope. But so he can stand on my desk. And so the problem with this is that I used the wrong kind of fill pattern. And so when it filled, it made this weird kind of mosaic pattern. You see that when the light hits it like that? And that was not intentional. And so my idea was to paint these. And, you know, because the Bruce Lee sprites only had a couple of colors, and so I thought I would paint that. But next is Yamo, the sumo wrestler. Now in the game, this guy is green and black. Bruce Lee is yellow and black. So to paint them, you would only have to mark off, you know, just a few squares and then hit it with a thing of paint. I thought, you know, I had all these ideas about printing these out and putting them on Etsy or something like that, but I never got around to it, and maybe I will someday. To print these out, each one of these probably takes an hour or so, like 45 minutes to an hour, and I wanted to scale them up a little bit. I think these were, I don't remember, but I was thinking like maybe, you know, 5" by 5" or something like that, something more substantial to put on a shelf. But of course you could print a lot of the small ones if you wanted. And then finally, my favorite guy is Ninja. So you kind of see through his head there. And this is exactly how the sprite is drawn, where that's that. So just turn him around there. He's got his little sword or club or whatever it is that he beats Bruce Lee with. So I normally have those. They sit right up here, up on top of my desk. They sit above where anybody can see on the stream. But I look at them all day long. They sit right up there, and yeah, I feel like I enjoy the 3D printer, but I don't know that I've got my money's worth out of it. But it's like a lot of things. Like if you say, "Oh, did I get my money's worth out of this computer thing?" Well, did you enjoy doing it? Yeah, So, I would also say that at the time, it came with a small spool of white filament, and think about it being the equivalent of when you buy either a new printer, like a LaserJet printer or an inkjet printer, and you get the small amount. It was like that. And then the first full spread of or spool of filament that I bought was black. And so everything that I printed for 6 months was not 6 months, but probably 3 months was black like that. And now, if you can see back there, I don't know if you can tell, but I've got blue. So I went from, and I've done a couple other different colors. I printed red stuff for, several months or whatever. And now I'm onto blue. So you could change the filament, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. And so I just don't do it. I just figure most of my stuff is utility, a hook or a eyeglass hanger or whatever, so I'm not that worried about it. And you can paint a 3D printed stuff. You can throw, they have primer for plastic or whatever. You can hit it with a coat of primer and spray it on there and let that dry, and then you can paint it any way you want. So I'm never really worried about what color I actually print something out in. But so anyway, I just saw these and I thought, for people that are gamers and people that are interested in 3D printers, they might like to see the gang here of Bruce Lee and Ninja, and then of course Yamo, sumo wrestler. So anyway, I kind of enjoy doing that, and turning sprites into 3D printable objects is not very difficult at all. In fact, you can literally trace a sprite, or you can take a sprite, turn it into a black and white graphic. If you could turn it into a vector graphic, you can import it directly in and print it out that way. So you may need to clean stuff up a little bit, but these I just actually I made a grid and put the sprite on the grid, and then I made boxes, and I drew the boxes in the CAD program and then stuck them all together. So either way that you do it, it really wasn't that difficult. So I've thought about maybe at some point in the future for one of my podcasts for Sprite Castle, or You Don't Know Flag, maybe for Sprite Castle, if I do a game, I may make a sprite of, from the game and print that out and do it in a giveaway or something like that. I don't know. That might be fun. So anyway, I hope you guys had a good week, and I hope you have a great week next week. It is spring, and that means that the wind is blowing a little bit. It's starting to warm up and things are starting to bloom, which means it's allergy season. That's a negative way to look at that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good time. And if you don't pay attention to the Patreon, I still post lots of stuff there. And of course, you'd have to see this through the Patreon. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir in that aspect. But if you see this today on Sunday, don't forget that this week I'll be reviewing Barbarian for the Commodore 64, and I'm doing a new thing where if you want to submit a short review of your opinion of the game, or you want to submit your high score for the game, you could do that. And if you get that in by Wednesday night, I'll be recording on Thursday, and I'll try to stick those into the show. So anyway, thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it all, and I will be talking to you soon.